Hello, welcome. This is Lee Waller, and I am working in Unreal Engine 5.6 Motion Design Tools. I'm going to take a look at recreating this animation here. This is mostly made up of a cloner with a sphere. I've also added in some effects from the post-process volume. We'll take a look at chromatic aberration and some lens flares. I am working in the motion design user interface. If you're not sure how to get to this point, I have another tutorial that you can jump out of here, go take a look at it real quick, and then come back. To get started, I'm going to add in a sphere. So I'm going to jump over here to the motion design tools, go to 3D shapes, and we'll double click on that sphere. I'm going to make a couple of adjustments to this. First, I want to create a material for it. I'm going to arrange my viewer here real quick, and then I'm going to add in the operator stack. With that sphere selected, I'll go to details, and then I'm going to drop down here and create this material first. I'm going to jump from simple to the material designer. That'll open up, and I'm just going to go with the PBR, hit continue. I'm going to make one change here on the base color real quick. Let's set that to a solid color. And then I'm going to go into the emissive channel here, and we'll set that also to a solid color. And then I'm going to change that color right there. The hexadecimal I have for this is 0066 FFFF. 0066 FFFF. It's just a blue color there. I'm going to hit OK on that. And last thing we want to do is right here under channels, let's go to emissive color, the strength right here, and let's bring that up to 10. This will have a strong effect on our lighting in the scene. I want to save this material. Save as new material designer, and right in here under the content folder, I'm going to right click and add a new folder, and I'll label this materials. Open that up, and we'll save this as blue emissive. We can close that out, and I'm going to bring this down in size now. Go to the mesh size right here on that sphere and bring that down to 7. Now we'll add in the cloner. Back over here in our motion design tools, let's drop down to cloners, and we'll select the grid. Then just come in here and click once, add that in. We'll need to make sure that's selected in the outliner. Select it, go back to the details, and we'll just zero that out to make sure that it's in the center of the scene. Then back to the motion design outliner, we will delete that default clone right there. Select it and hit delete. And then we want to bring the sphere down into the cloner, make it a child. So just click on it, drag. And once you see it highlighted like that, drop. Now the sphere is a child of the cloner, and you'll see that it's cloning that sphere. So let's go back into the cloner, and we'll go into the details, and we'll make some changes to this. We're going to drop down to the layout. And right here on the count for the X and Y, we'll set that to 50. And then we can set the count for Z to 25. And let's go down here to range, and we'll enable that, and that will give us some properties to work with. We're just going to make one adjustment on the scale. We're going to set the minimum down to a 0.1. We'll take a look at the lighting in the scene. Since the material that we added to the sphere is emissive, it is creating a lot of the lighting for us. I'm going to go right here to directional first, and I'm just going to shut that off. You'll see that it doesn't really have much effect on the scene, but we will work with the skylight. I'm going to select it and jump into the details. And I'm going to move here to the intensity scale for it right there and set that to 20. Now we'll add effects to this. So back in our motion design outliner, the way we're going to do that is using this post-process volume. This volume encompasses the whole scene, so it's going to affect everything in it. With it selected, let's go into the details. And right here under the lens category, we have a number of options. We'll explore a few of these. The first I'm going to take a look at is Blom. I'm going to open that up. We'll turn that on, check that on. And then the intensity right here, let's make sure that's on along with the threshold. We can adjust any of these values. I'm going to go ahead and set the intensity to 1. And now I'm going to jump down to, I want to add in this chromatic aberration. We'll click the intensity on there, and we'll set that to 2. All of these values you can work with and adjust it for the look you want. Then I'll drop down to lens flares right here. And I'm going to turn on the intensity right there, and we'll bring that intensity up to 3. So with these 3 options on the post-process volume, we can create many different looks along with the intensity of the emissive color from the sphere. I do want to animate these spheres just slightly. So I'm going to go back into the Motion Design Outliner, select the cloner, and we're going to add an effector to it. In its details panel, let's go down and we'll look for effectors. And right there, we want to create a linked effector. So click on that. Right now it's on a sphere. We're going to change the shape of this to what is similar to that post-process volume. And we're going to go to unbound. That way it will affect everything in the scene. And right here on mode, let's change that from offset to procedural. We'll leave it on curl noise, go to the location strength, and we're going to set all 3 of those to 1. And now we'll make some adjustments on the pan and the frequency. Here on the pan with all 3 constrained together, let's set that to 10. And on the frequency, we'll set that to 20. So now we've got a little bit of movement in all the instances of the sphere. I'm going to set up my first text. So I'm going to jump over here to actors and click on the text actor. And we'll make some changes to it. Let me make sure that is selected right there. And I'm going to go ahead and label this visual varmints. So I know which text this is. Make sure it's selected, go back into the details, and I'll type that in. I'm going to change this font right here from Roboto to Agency YB _ font, that one right there. And I'm going to center align this. And I do want to enforce the uppercase right there. And I'm going to drop down to the extrusion, the geometry right here. And on the extrude, I'm going to bring that up to 100. And I'm going to need to make some materials for this. So drop down here to our material, and I'm going to go from solid to custom. And with that selected, I'm going to go into the material designer right there, and it should give us the option for the front material, bevel, extrude, and back material. We're going to make 3 different materials here, just very simple materials. So on the front material, I'll go ahead and hit create, and I'm just going to go with a PBR and hit continue. On the base color, we'll change this from a texture to a solid color. And we'll choose this color right here, and you can change this to anything you want to. I have this hexadecimal right here that I'm going to paste in. That is 001 C4 CFF. 001 C4 CFF. And we'll hit OK on that. And now let's save that material in our materials folder right there. And I'm just going to select this and type in dark blue. And then we can go right here to the bevel material, and we can select it and jump up here to Material Designer Material. And we'll add this in, and we can call this MD _ dark gold. Then let's double click on it, and that opens up the Material Designer. We can start with the PBR just like we did. Go to continue, and we'll change this on the base color to a solid color, and then we'll adjust that color. And for this one, I have a hexadecimal of 5F5 C00FF. We can hit OK on that one, and we'll just update it, save it right there. And then we can close that, and then we'll add in this extrude material. Click on the drop down, we'll go up to Material Designer Material. And our last one will be a dark red. So we'll go MD _ dark red. And just like the others, we'll double click on the material there and start with the PBR. Base color, change that to solid color. And then we can add in our red. 8E000AFF. We can update that one and then close out the material designer. To make this a little bit easier, I'm going to jump back in there, make sure that that text is selected, and I'm going to duplicate it twice. And I'll just use Control D once and Control D again. And now I have two instances of that, and I can go in here and edit these to the other two phrases that I need. This one will be presents. And the last one will be sphered dominance. We do need to go into those two and change the text there for those. So select them and we'll move right there to text. And this one again will be presents. And let me select the last one and then back into its details. And this one will be again sphered dominance. So we have all three of our text. And since I've already created this animation, I know where I want these next two pieces to go. I'm going to select presents and we'll go ahead and adjust the location and rotation for this. So on the location there, I'm going to set this to a negative 2100 by 217 by a negative 783. Now we'll go select the sphere dominance text, go back to its details, and the location for it is a negative 1825 by a negative 2245 by a negative 775. I do want to rotate that one slightly on the yaw right there. We'll set that to 45 degrees. And we'll see that whenever we get to it. And now we'll move the visual varmints text into place also. With it selected, we'll look at its details, and here on location, we'll set that to 1784 on the X location, and on the Z location, we'll set that to 252. Most of the animation in this is done by the camera, so I'm going to go down here to the sequencer, make a few adjustments. I'm going to set this to 24 frames per second and add some time to this. I'm going to set this to 360, and then we can drag this out to that point, or we can easily set that by clicking this red bracket right there. We're going to animate the camera, so back here in the motion design outliner, I'll select that camera. Make sure that the camera is unlocked so that you can move it. So if it's locked like that, just click on it. It will unlock. And now we can go back into the details panel and begin to set this up. I've adjusted the camera to a 16:9 DSLR, and I set it to a 30mm prime. Now up here on location, let's make sure that our timeline indicator's at the beginning of the timeline right there. And we can set our first keyframe for the camera by clicking on location, and I want one for rotation also. You'll see now that it has added in a camera cuts track for us. We won't be making any cuts in this, but that's always normal whenever you add in a camera. And so our camera is in there also. We can scroll down and you'll see right here under the transform properties that we now have keyframes for the location and rotation. So if we open those up, you'll see all of those properties there. I'm going to jump to 48 frames here, about 2 seconds in, and we're going to move that camera to begin to animate it. On the X location right there, I'll set that to a negative 1500. And one thing that I've done also in the sequencer is I've turned on auto key right there. So that will help us whenever we move in the timeline and then adjust the properties, it will set a keyframe for us. I'm going to make a few adjustments to the visual varmints text with it selected in the details. In the transform properties there, I'm going to set this location to a negative 1650 by 0 by 252 right there. Now we should be able to watch this animation. And that has our text and camera landing exactly where we want it. For our next camera animation, we'll jump to 72 frames in the sequencer. And what we're going to do is our next text is down and off to the side. So we're going to drop the camera down and then rotate it 90 degrees. I'm going to move into my location and rotation for the camera. And on this X right here, I'm going to set that to a negative 1600. And I'm going to go ahead and set a keyframe for the rest of these properties. So that just slightly moves the camera backwards. Now I'm going to jump to 120 frames in the sequencer, and this is where we will move the camera down and to the side. I'm going to maintain this X and Y value. And then on the Z value right here, I'll set that to a -1000. That's going to drop the camera down. And then we're also going to rotate it 90 degrees on the yaw right here. I'll go ahead and set keyframes for the other values. And I'm going to adjust this text just slightly. Go in the Motion Design Outliner, make sure I have that selected, and I'll move it up a little bit. And let me look at the details here. And let's see. Push it back just slightly, maybe to 300 right there. So let's take a look at the animation now. Jump back to the beginning, hit play. Once I finish the camera animation, I'll come back and animate this text in and out. For the camera, I have one more animation I'm going to create. I'm going to jump to 216 in the timeline and take a look at my location and rotation values. I'm going to leave this at -1600, and we're going to move this on the Y to a -2225. We'll leave the Z where it is, and then we're going to adjust this yaw just slightly, and we'll set it to 45 degrees. I'm going to adjust this text also just slightly. So let me go into the outliner, select that, and go into the details. I'll push it back just slightly. So we'll need to do this on the X and the Y the way it's set up right now, and just kind of adjust that till we have it where we want it. Maybe a little too far. There we go. Much better. And then I'll bring it up just slightly to center it up. And now let's take a look at the full animation. So at any time that maybe you feel the effects are a little too much, you can definitely go back into the post-process volume there and adjust the bloom, that chromatic aberration, and also that lens flare. I did add in a couple of text animations on two of these, so I'm going to jump back in and add those in. I'm going to start here at frame 98 and start to animate in the word presents. I'm going to go to Motion Design Outliner, go to the word presents, and then go into the details. This has changed a little bit in 5.6, so I'm going to use the 3D text animation tool in this. So I'm going to drop down here. They've kind of hidden it. It's under Layout Effects. We'll go there and hit the plus button, and then we'll need to add that in, this transform effect right here. We'll scroll that open and go into transform. Now we have location, rotation, and scale. For this one, I'm going to use the location and the scale, so we'll enable both of those. I'll first set up the animation for location. The location progress is the way I'm going to animate this, so I'm going to go ahead and set it up to 100%. And at that point in the sequencer, I'm going to set the first keyframe by clicking that diamond right there. I want the location order to go right to left, so we'll change that. And then I want my location end to be 1,250. And we'll leave the others as is. And now we'll jump ahead to 120 in the sequencer, and that's where we'll end this. So by setting that location end right there at 1,250, we pushed the text away from the camera. And now with the location progress set at 100%, we're going to drag that down to 0. And you'll see that that's going to animate all of that text in towards the camera. So now with it set at 0, we'll set that second keyframe, and it's already set for us because we are using the auto key right there. And so now let's jump back and take a look at that. And so we have a little bit of an animation going on there. And as the camera moves away, we will animate this text out using the scale. So back over here in the layer effects, let me drop down and move to make sure that the scale is enabled. Click right there, and we have our scale properties. We'll go ahead and bring that up to 100%. And I'm going to set my first keyframe right there. And at 120 right there, I'm going to set the first keyframe for the scale progress. And then jump in the timeline to 168. And we'll bring that scale progress down to 0 and set that second keyframe for it. So that should be set. Let's take a look at that animation now. And now we can take a look at the last text here. Go into the Motion Design Outliner and we'll select that sphered dominance text right there and go into the details for it. And we'll need to activate those layout effects just like we did earlier. So right there, layout effects, we'll hit the plus button and then add in that transform effect. We can open those up and we have location, rotation, and scale. To animate this in, I'm going to use rotation on this. And I'm going to start this animation right here around 192. And the way this is rotating, we're going to actually change this rotation. We'll set this to 0. And we'll set right here to a -90. And just to move in to see what's going on there, they're all rotated to the side. So let me go back to 192 right there. And we'll start our rotation progress at that point. And by clicking the diamond right there, it adds that property into the sequencer. And I'm going to jump to 216 and bring this up to 100%. Sets that second keyframe. So let's take a look at that real quick. And then to animate this text out, I'm going to go to 236 in the timeline. And I'm going to enable the location. And we'll start the animation right there. So we're going to set a keyframe for that location progress right there. And we will need to change the location end because right now the way that it's going to animate is you'll see that it's going to go backwards away from us. And I actually want this to go forward. And so on this location end right here, I'm going to set that to a -500 and then jump to 260 in the timeline and set this location progress to 100%. Looks like we'll need to go a little bit farther than the -500. Let's try -600. Hopefully that clears us, and we'll take a look at the full animation now. There's one more thing I added to the camera. I added camera shake to it. So I'm going to go through that real quick. I'm going to go back to my content drawer and just right here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go up to Blueprint class and open up all classes right here. And I'm going to search for camera shake. And I'm going to look for this default camera shake base right there. Select it and then select it right there. And I'll just label this camera shake. Double click on that to open it up. And right here in the details for it, first thing I'm going to do is drop down to timing. And on this duration, I want it to go the entire time that the camera is being used. So we'll just set that to 0. And I'm just going to jump into the location here. You can explore all of these different options, animating the shake either on location, rotation, or on the field of view. I'm just going to use location on this one just to make it simple, just to add a little bit of movement into the camera. And so on the location amplitude, I'm going to bring that up to 2. And I'm going to compile this, save it. I'll go ahead and close that out. And now we'll jump back down into the sequencer. And I'm going to go to my camera right here, the active camera. And I'm going to click on this plus button and we should now be able to go up to camera shake. There is our camera shake right there. Add that in. And after adding that camera shake in, let's go into the sequencer here and make sure this bar right here spans the entire sequence. That way that shake will be active throughout the entire sequence. We can jump back to the beginning there and hit the play button. And you can adjust the amount of shake in that by going back to the blueprint and making adjustments to it. I'm going to bring that down. I set it at 5. I'm going to bring it down to 3. Go back to the beginning and watch it through. I hope this tutorial has been helpful. For more on motion media design, hit the like and subscribe button and check out my other tutorials.